Welcome, NEC fans, to our latest NEC Now podcast on the NEC Overtime Pod. Today, I'm joined by Mount St. Mary's Director of Athletics, Lynne Robinson. We will be discussing Title IX, the role of women in collegiate athletics, and the future of our institutions. Lynne, thank you so much for being here.
Happy to be here. Appreciate the invitation. Thank you.
Of course. So not only were you a student athlete, but you were a three-sport athlete at the Mount, competing in field hockey, basketball, and tennis. You graduated in 1979, only 7 years after the implementation of Title IX. What was it like being a female athlete prior to Title IX in your middle school and early high school years? I can't imagine it was easy competing in such a variety of sports during a time where it wasn't necessarily widely encouraged.
Right, there was not a lot of there were not a lot of organized sports for girls at all, and growing up here in rural Maryland and Emmitsburg especially, so it's very fortunate to grow up. And my father was the head men's basketball coach here at the Mount for 49 years, so I grew up in a very athletic-minded family. So I learned from a very young age. I was a tomboy from a very young age, and very much enjoyed whether it was just playing, learned from an early age. I loved baseball. I loved playing catch with the football. And of course, my life was spent going up as much as I could with my dad to practice and shooting hoops. So we were being around athletics our whole time, our whole lives was just as very integral to all of it. But there were no teams. I didn't play. Basketball was my sport, and there was not a team to play on until high school. In terms of that, there were no camps. Mm-hmm. My father started a girls' basketball camp, and he says, geez, I wish I had done this a long time ago. And so he did it for my sister and I, and he always had a boys' camp, and he started a girls' camp. So my sister and I, and a lot of his colleagues and their daughter, his friends of his and their daughters would come, and so you could really see it growing. But I had an interesting. We had a local gentleman there was a track team called the Fairfield Striders, and he was coached by Bill Gilbert, and he was a real advocate for women in sports. And in fact, he wrote a very famous article for Sports Illustrated called "Women Are Getting a Raw Deal," and it was in the 1970s. And Bill was he passed away a couple years ago, but he was a real pioneer for women's sports. Again, started in the small town of Fairfield, Pennsylvania, which is very close to Emmitsburg. We went all over the country with the Fairfield Striders, and it was AAU track is what it was. And so we would from competing in cross country and outdoor track, and in the summers. So we did have that in all through what would have been middle school. So I did that through probably like from 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th grade and 10th, and then Bill and his family moved away. But that was a great experience, and Bill was just, or else we wouldn't have had anything until high school. And so then I went to a very, very small high school. And that's what I tell the students now. I said there used to be a beginning and end to seasons. So you played your sport. You had the sport that you played, and then you played we didn't have soccer. But we had field hockey. So played field hockey in the fall, and then you had the fall, and then you went to basketball. And then when basketball was over, in the Mount, we started a track team. I tore my ACL my senior year in college playing basketball, so I couldn't play my spring sport that year, which we were getting into. We were starting a track, and I was going to go back to my track roots and be throw the discus and do my track events, which I had loved, and I was so excited that we were starting. But then I was injured and couldn't do it. So growing up, if not for my dad, I mean, I literally, my 9th birthday was going to see the Baltimore Orioles. And I just, that was in getting Brooks Robinson's autograph. And it was my sports were just a really big part of my life. So I'm very lucky that, I had the dad that said, let's go out and have a catch, and and that was what we did. And then coming up to the gym, I just would learn to play basketball. Just, he taught us all how to play basketball up in the gym, and kind of had the gym to ourselves. So it was great.
Yeah, that's great. And it's great that you had that support, especially in the early years. So you were a student athlete in that first decade following Title IX, a coach in the second, and an athletics administrator for the last over 2 decades. What progress have you seen regarding gender equity in collegiate athletics firsthand?
Yeah, it's been an incredible transformation. It really, really has. And so when I went to college, Title IX, 1972. And so when you're going through it, and you're in high school, and you're hearing about it, you don't really know what the impact is going to be. But all I know is by the time I got to college, we were adding sports every year at Mount St. Mary's, because more and more girls were coming into school who had been able to play in high school. So there was access. So while there was this core group of us, there really, to fill the rosters, you had to be double or triple sport participants, because you didn't really have enough. So we would literally go to field hockey practice. We'd bring our basketball stuff with us. So we'd finish field hockey practice. We'd run over to the cafeteria to get something to eat, and then we'd run back to the gym for basketball practice. So there was always that about 3-week overlap. And people now just like, how'd you do that? I'm like, we wouldn't have changed it for the world. We were doing what we loved to do. So there was quite a bit of overlap, but by the time I graduated from college, so in those 4 years, just the number of participation opportunities had grown dramatically. And then there was the AIAW, was the women's collegiate sport. That was the governing body. And, in the late 70s, early 80s, and while the women's sports was getting so much more popular than the NCAA, and the AIW, thank God for them. They offered us these postseason championship opportunities, and it was a wonderful to have. And then the NCAA said, well, we see this growth happening. I wish they had seen it earlier, right? But then they decided to have women's sports. I think it was like 81 or 82 when they made that decision, and that allowed tremendous access to championships. And at the time, we were Division II. Mm-hmm. And so Mount St. Mary's was Division II. So we had a women's basketball team go to the Final Four in 1982. And, and our men's teams had gone there too. And we had some track and field All-Americans for both men's and women's, some of which I coached are on our women's team. But it was, and then to see where we've come from there, it's just like, it's night and day. It's night and day. And what I can, my own mind, when I look at my own daughter's athletic experience, I have a son and 2 daughters, and and they're all, 30, 32, and 33 now, but their athletic experiences, from whether they started when they were 4 or 5, has been the exact same. Like, they had the same opportunities going through. And while my daughters they all competed in all sports right through high school, and then my daughters continued on into college. My son didn't play intercollegiate sports, but he was a very good athlete too. And I think that was a good sign to me. It was like they had the same experiences. And in fact, probably on my daughter's basketball time in high school, they won a state championship. They probably had more people come to all their to the girls' games than were coming to the boys' game, and the community support. And so I've seen absolutely a transformation when it comes to that. And while the sad irony is that with all the growth of the athletics for girls and women, there actually are fewer women coaching, which is really which is really sad when you read that, and people don't quite understand that. I said, well, yeah, because there's more. These jobs became desirable. Exactly. And you had, and then so a lot more men started getting in coaching. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but there's actually fewer women in coaching now, and because of whether it is the time commitment and whether it is the life work balance and the family balance and stuff, and that's something that I know that I would love to. I see that as a big part of what I should be doing is trying to mentoring our young coaches and giving young women coaches an opportunity to wear that head coaching hat and to get involved with coaching, because it's the most rewarding experience you can get. I know that's probably a future question that you'll be asking, but to get back to your original the past question was, it's been very rewarding and very exciting to see the transformation of athletics at all levels for girls and women, and it's it's exciting to be a part of that.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting you mentioned that about women's coaching, because prior to Title IX, about 90% of women's teams were coached by women, and now that numbers are in the 30s, depending on the division. But at Division I level, it's about 34%. So it was a very, very drastic drop over the years.
Yeah, no, it's 90 to in the 30s is, what is that, 90 to less than 50%? But boy, that's even more than what I thought.
Mm-hmm. It's a startling fact that you wouldn't.
It is, and it's very unfortunate. It's because I think it's something that a lot of young women would love to have that opportunity, that pathway.
A key focus of the discussions I've been having is the role of the NEC as an example of gender equity across the NCAA. For example, the Northeast Conference is the only Division I conference where all the women's basketball head coaches are female. Why do you think the Northeast Conference has been able to make these kinds of steps forward?
We have really benefited by having Noreen Morris as our commissioner. So she is just a great representative, represents our conference, at the highest levels of engagement at the NCAA and amongst her colleagues of conference commissioners, and her leadership has just been critical to this growth, in my opinion, and also just being a great colleague and engagement, her level of engagement with each and every university in the NEC and from presidents to the ADs and all that. So there's been a real, the NEC is just, it's such a wonderful collegial conference, and we are all, male or female or whatever the case may be, but we all have learned, many of us have come up through different levels in our careers, and so we truly understand those, and Noreen has worked on college campuses and obviously for many years, so she understands what goes on all of our campuses. So no, it's a really something we should be proud of, and I know it hasn't happened overnight. If you did a snapshot from 5 years ago, how many women coaches would there have been in basketball? I know we are male. Most of were probably male. So I think there's been a real conscious effort of the athletic directors, and Noreen's leadership and with the ADs to say, look, we've got to make sure that we as leaders of our departments that we are making sure that this commitment to gender equity, that we show that in many ways and make sure that we're interviewing women on our searches, right? Making sure that we're including certainly that we have a diverse candidate pool in every way, and make sure that we're giving. And there could be sometimes it is the out of the box candidate that maybe doesn't have all the experience, but that presents a whole other skill set and a way to connect with our young women athletes who I think many of them have had, and I only male coaches, but a lot more are having female coaches, and having that connection and building those relationships. I think we can see the strength in that when it is a woman leader, a woman's coach. We also have we hired a water polo coach, and she's coaching men and women. So we're that's our latest sport that we added, and she has just done a remarkable job being women can. And it's not just the X's and the O's, right? It's the caring, it's the empathy, it's the communication, and these are all things that you got to build that foundation based upon these core values, and then the rest will work. The rest will work.
Yeah, definitely. And I wanted to focus specifically on your women's basketball team, who had an impressive year, ending the season with the number 2 seed of the NEC tournament before the coronavirus unfortunately canceled the semifinal game.
Yeah.
I also think it's important to note that 4 of the 5 members of that coaching staff are female. As the director of athletics, how have you seen that particular coaching staff contribute to the success of your student athletes?
Each of them individually are remarkable young women, and in terms of they understand and appreciate and embrace the university mission, but also the mission of athletics and the mission and the critical area of the importance of a student athlete experience. And they can bring out the best in these kids, and they can they work hard. They motivate these kids to work hard. So each one of them individually have some really great individual attributes, but together they're stronger. Together as a team, they're stronger as a coaching staff. Including our male coach, they work together so well, and I think I know that our student athletes, members of the women's team, that they see that collective effort of them, and there is so much communication. I have to say that over and over, and the stuff that Maria Marcassano, our head coach, we would talk a lot. I've talked to all our coaches these past few months. What have they been doing? And I'm just inspired by the things that she's doing on her Zoom calls, like to the point where taking turns, letting them lead the book club discussion, right? Letting them bringing up the topics and having these tough conversations that we've had about race and diversity and the climate of. And I just as much as it's a new world for everybody, so many of our coaches have really embraced it, and Maria and her staff are right up there with it. So no, it's I think they each bring a little something different. And I always tell our head coaches, you don't want to hire someone who's just like you, right? You want to hire someone who's going to bring. Ultimately, you're the head coach. You got to make the tough decisions, but the people you have on your staff, you want them to challenge is maybe not the right word, but just say, well, here's another way. And so each coach brings with them their own experiences as a player, as a coach, what they see in recruiting. So I think that relationship that they have with each other is really quite a strength of our staff.
Yeah, that's great to hear. So in 1996, the year before you were named Associate Athletics Director for Compliance and Operations, only 6.7% of Division I Associate ADs were female. According to the NCAA's most recent report, so this would be 2019, less than 15% of Division I athletic directors are female. As someone who has served in both of these roles, what has it meant for you to be an example of success in these limited spaces?
It's not until you think about the numbers and the stats that you bring up that you just don't think of it that way. You're just saying like, hey, mm-hmm. I got a big job here, I'm doing the best I can, and I've been here my whole career, so I know all the alumni, and I probably, I guess by now, probably have hired the majority of our coaches. Some of them I did not hire as an AD, but I was here when they were hired, obviously, and was part of that hiring process. When I think about my career and raising 3 young children, back when they were little, and I think about the 90s are kind of a blur for me in that respect in terms of their ages and everything, and they're all their sports and all the stuff that's involved with that athletics. I still think every day when I come in these past few months, different coming into a quiet building, right? I'm very thankful. I'm filled with gratitude to have had such a great career at a wonderful school that I love and feel like it's part of my family. And I always included that with my children as I was included as a child of a coach and an athletic director. So when I look at the overall numbers, I just think it's, and you have to be, I tell this to young people when they're coming in, you have to be willing, and they do internships, I said, don't focus on one area. Be willing to, I think there's probably been a lot more siloing of areas within athletics. So, I was coaching and I was doing compliance and I was doing assistant AD stuff, but if I needed to drive a van for a team, I drove the van. If I needed to help set up the hurdles for the track, I was doing that, and I'm not touting myself for that. I'm just saying that's what you do. You wear different hats. I started our student athlete advisory committee, started our academic support services many years ago because I think we need this. I think we need this. So I think that there is a lot. It's a very time-consuming job, and when you look at weekends and evenings, but it's so, I've just found it so rewarding because of the relationships that I've built. So when I think about young people maybe deciding elsewhere, and we'll lose some coaches and some young staff members because they can get a better job and maybe regular hours and certainly probably better pay along the way. And I understand their decisions. I hope that we can continue to have. I would love to see those numbers grow in terms of the number of women and diversity in general, because I just think that women in leadership roles make organizations and institutions stronger. I just think that they do, and to have more women represented, because let's face it, the collegiate population is typically more than 50% women, and I think that is very important to not just to my coaching staff, but also to our student athletes. So I hope that those numbers, you'd hope that they would have grown a little. And I'm sure there's much more data and stats that we can look at to try to figure that out. But I hope that continues to grow and expand. My daughter's a head women's lacrosse coach at University of Chicago. So,
wow.
Yeah. So she's she's enjoying her coaching career, and she has benefited from so many wonderful mentors in her as a intercollegiate athlete, and where she's been at the schools since landing at Chicago. In each place, there were wonderful women who have been just great mentors. And so when I go to some of our women's leaders meetings, at conventions, and I'll see all of them, and I always thank them for what they've done for my daughter. But that's what they're just, that's the impact they have on young coaches, and it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and it's been so great to hear over the course of these conversations I've had just how willing women in leadership positions are to mentor like the next generation of coaches and administrators, and it's really, really great to hear.
No, I think that's so important.
Yeah.
We all benefited from that, and I benefited from mentors that were male as well. There's a lot of great men because there's more men in athletics. So I'm truly appreciative for the mentors that I had in my life of both genders, and I feel that this is something that I feel such gratitude, and it's important to give back. And I look at it as just something that I love doing and want to do, and it's important to do.
Yeah, definitely. So you were exposed to Mount St. Mary's and the world of athletic administration from a very young age. Like you said before, your father, Jim, was a legendary Mount basketball coach and athletics director. Why exactly did you want to follow in this career path and become an athletics administrator yourself? And how have you seen that reasoning change or expand over the course of your career?
The truth be told is I didn't know what I wanted to do when I was in college. What I did know was that I loved athletics being part of my life, my whole life. There was not a major. Back now we have the master's. You can have an undergraduate degree in sport management, a master's degree in sport management. There wasn't any of those types of majors, and I was a political science major, political science and history, and that's what I love. And I was planning on going to law school, it was my senior year, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do, and I was derailed by my injury. Of course, back in that day, you didn't get an ACL reconstruction. You didn't have the other year. I didn't know what was wrong. I kept on trying to play, and ended up, I couldn't play anymore because finally they did a surgery and said, well, you tore this ACL. It was back in this dark age. We didn't have a trainer either. So I spent a lot of that time, my senior year, probably initially feeling like sad for myself and like, well, what do I want to do? And so I saw athletics from a different perspective, sitting on the bench for the first time, being injured, not playing. And so I started thinking of coaching in that sense. And I was always working the camps. And then I started coaching at my old high school the year after that. And at the time, the Mount was adding sports. And they said, look, we need to have, there were no women coaches or anything. So we need to have, while you're doing teaching and coaching at your old high school, can you come back and help out? I'm like, yeah, sure. And it was just kind of accompanying the team. So I got into it that way. It was really part-time in the beginning, and then it grew to full-time. And when we joined the NCAA from the AIAW, the NCAA said, well, you have to, and then we made transition to Division I, you have to have someone to do compliance. So I did kind of feel like I should be an attorney by now, all my years in compliance. I should be a lawyer. But so then I gradually, at that point, the university, our number of athletic teams was growing. So I left coaching and got into full-time administration, being assistant AD, including compliance, including, whatever else. But that was something, making that transition from Division II to Division I from the late 80s and the early 90s. So and at that point, I had a young family growing. So as much as the administration was tedious, it was harder. Probably it was better than being on the road coaching and the recruiting part of it. So I liked it. I liked learning all the different elements I liked going to the convention. We joined the NEC in the like 89, 90, around that time, I think. And meeting the colleagues in our new conference. And there was a huge learning curve for, not just for me, but for our whole athletic department, because it was quite a transition. So working through all of that, it was something that I really enjoyed learning about the administrative roles, and as I said earlier, learning many different aspects of it, of intercollegiate athletics administration. So yeah, there definitely was a learning curve, and I had to learn a lot. So then just expanding my roles with each of the ADs, my predecessors, and then when Chappie manager, a dear friend, wonderful athletic director, when he decided to retire, and I want to say 06, 07, our president said something to me. He said, look, I feel you're ready. Your Chappie is very supportive of you. And is this something, would you accept the exhibition? And I said, Of course, I'll accept it. And it was very chaotic first year because I didn't actually have a chance to replace me in that first year.
Yeah, okay.
So that was nuts.
I'm
So I'm
sure.
doing, yeah. So I was like, well, I can't do this for much longer. I said, so then you're being AD and you're uh, doing the bigger stuff, but then I'm in the weeds doing compliance stuff. And it just was, it was a challenging year, but I had lots of folks who were helping me and were working through that. But yeah, it seemed like a natural transition at the time. I feel having my playing and coaching experience really helps me as an administrator. I feel my different administrative roles help me as an AD.
Yes.
And so I think it's all, it's just this collection of experiences and bits and pieces. I think being a daughter of a coach has helped me see things differently. So I was very grateful for the opportunity, and that's the thing. I feel like I still have more to learn, and so that's something that I would always advise people: just continue to learn, continue to evolve, because that's what the world is doing that. So we need to keep doing that as each generation comes up and as the world changes. There certainly is a lot. I still have a lot more to learn.
So you did just kind of touch on this, but by way of wrap up, do you have any final words of encouragement or advice for young women looking to pursue careers in collegiate athletics?
Yeah. Yes. Something like that. Things that we've touched on before. Don't be afraid to go out of your comfort zone. So to learn different aspects. Don't go into a thing and, well, I'm only interested in this part. No, learn as much as you can about everything, and go out of your comfort zone as much as possible. Also, don't be afraid to ask questions. Sometimes you're not going to know it all. I don't know it all. Be active learner and take advantage of mentors that you meet at meetings or at events, and they can often become your friends for life. And so make sure that you take advantage of mentors in the field that you're interested in, and ask the questions. And also don't let always be curious, continue to be curious, and maybe wanting to learn, but just know that it is, you can find the balance. You can find the balance. And if you are involved with it and it seems overwhelming, step back, take some time for yourself, recharge the batteries, and get back in there. Because at the end of the day, when you're in a job that you love and you find rewarding, that's the biggest gift of all, and that's what you'll look back on, and you'll be happy with, and you can make it all work if you have that.
Yeah, definitely. That was great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was Mount St. Mary's Director of Athletics, Lynne Robinson, and this has been NEC Now.